Hello class, welcome to a review of writing equations. Today we'll be looking at standard form equations and equations we can write in slope-intercept. So let's take a look. Okay, when we look at the standard form word problems, in these cases, these are going to be the ones where we're going to be looking for two different rates. So we'll have a rate for basically like variable A, a rate for variable B. So you're going to have an X and a Y, and we're going to have like two different rates going on that essentially equal our total. So when we look through your equations, a few things we really need to be worried about is, one, defining our variables, and then writing an equation. So if we have t-shirts at a flea market that cost $4.50 each, and we have shorts that cost $6 each, and you have $40, write an equation that would model this situation. So the first thing we have that we're missing, we have a cost of $4.50 for our t-shirts, and we also have a $6 for a pair of shorts. And then of course we're going to be looking at our total, which is 40. So the first thing we're missing, and usually we just kind of write it first is we're just going to write them in X and Y's, and X is going to be the number of t-shirts. So we know what the cost is. That's $4.50. What we don't know is how many we're trying to get. So the first part of this could be 450x, because again, we know that X is the number of t-shirts times the cost. So that's going to basically get us our first rate. When we look at our shorts, well, that's a different rate, plus it's a different variable, different item. So that's where we'll say Y is going to be our number of shorts. And that way, when we look at our second rate, that is going to be able to add us 6Y. Now, what that's going to equal, well, is our total of $40. Because basically what it's going to say is the rate one, $4.50 per t-shirt, $6 per pair of shorts, and that's going to end up equaling $40 because that's all the money we have. Okay, so let's look at the second one. If a small van holds 8 people and a large van holds 12 people, and you have a total of 100 people, write an equation that would model this situation. So if we look at this small van, that's the first thing that we're going to be looking at. But we know it has 8 people. So if we look at our X, we can say this is going to be the number of vans, or I should say small van, because we've got to be a little bit more specific. So we know that's going to be 8x, because we can get 8 per small van. And we also need to look for rate 2, as we have large vans. Now they have 12 people. So make sure you're defining your variable. So Y is going to be a number of large vans. And we know that that rate is going to be 12 per Y. And the last thing we know is we are looking for 100 people, which would be our total. So 8x plus 12y would equal 100. Okay. All right. Take a look at some examples and try that out on your own. Okay, so you can pause here, solve these. You will need to provide a picture into the Canvas assignment. All right, good luck. Okay, the other types of word problems that we'd be looking at is ones that would probably take the slope-intercept form. This is your y equals mx plus b, where the y ends up being your total. We can look at the rate. That's going to be, again, what are we getting charged per some item. And then this one usually involves an initial. So we know that would be like your y-intercept, your initial value for these. So the first example, when we look at this, the company charges a $50 activation fee and $70 for every month of service. All right, so if we look through here and we are looking at $50 activation fee, that looks like an activation fee is going to be like some initial fee. Once we look at the $70 for every month of service, well, that's starting to sound like a rate, $70 per month. So when we look at that and we look at X, this is going to be for every month. So your X is going to represent your number of months. Now, the only thing we don't know here is we don't know what the total is, but it looks like it's going to be essentially your Y is going to be your cost of the phone. So this is just going to be in this situation, going to be a total cost. So when you look at this equation, a lot of times with these, the Y doesn't change much. When we look at our rate, this is $70 per month. So that's $70 per X, so 70 times X. And then the last thing we're looking at is that activation fee, which would be plus 50. So all said and done, that would be a Y equals 70X plus 50, where the Y would get us an equation for your total cost over time. Okay. Looking at example B, Laura is going to owe $12,000 on her car, and the payment is $350 every month. So if we're going to try to write an equation to represent this, the one thing we don't know, again, is the total. And when we look at what does X and Y equal, the Y is going to equal your total something. Your X, okay, if we kind of look through here, $350 every month. So that's going to be definitely going to be your, again, number of months. That's going to be your rate portion. And then initially, we're going to owe $12,000. So when we start looking at this relationship between owing money and paying money, the one thing that stays consistent with this is your Y is going to equal some type of total. Now, depending on how we write the rest of this, so say we're going to pay money back, so we're paying a positive 350X, that's going to be assuming that our owed money was initially in the 12,000. So that would be one way of looking at this. We could also kind of reverse some things and say, well, what if we're saying that total is positive? Well, we owe $12,000. That means every time we take a payment, that's going to have our remaining balance. So either one of these equations would work. It's just a matter of how we want to write this, where that second equation down here, this is going to be basically telling us the remaining balance, and it's going to keep everything positive, where this one here is going to be talking about more about your total debt, because we're talking about the debt that's remaining, trying to pay it back, or we're saying, all right, this is how much I owe, and this is how much remains. So when you look at the two, either one would work. It's just we need to make sure that they have that positive-negative relationship. Okay, let's take a look at some practice on your own. So again, kind of finish up here. Make sure you take a picture and upload both of them into Canvas for your credit. Okay, good luck.